Gigi Robinson, and today's date is November 8, 2011. I'm interviewing Sergeant Timothy L. Maxey at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, about his life and military service. Tim, where were you born?
I was born in Sayre, Oklahoma.
Did you grow up there?
No, I did not.
Where did you grow up?
Mainly I grew up in a suburb of Kansas City, as Shawnee Mission, Kansas.
And what was it like growing up there?
It was quiet mainly. We lived out in the countryside, so it took a while to get to school and whatnot, because I actually went to high school in a different city than where I grew up, because we were on the outskirts of the city.
Were you living on a farm at the time?
No.
So it was just the suburbs?
Yes.
Did you grow up with both of your parents in a household?
I grew up with adopted parents.
And did you have any siblings as well?
My adopted parents had their daughter, and then I have a half-brother.
And what was it like growing up with siblings?
I was the middle child, so pretty much it was my older sister got what she wanted. She was also a straight-A student. And then you had me. I got bored with school early in life, so I was like just in the middle of the road, and then I got bored with school, so I started failing classes on purpose. Nah, it was just one of those where, I don't know, it was childhood, I guess.
Let's move forward a little bit in time. When you told your parents that you were going to enlist in the military, what was their response?
I never told them.
Never told them? Did you
No.
just disappear one day?
Actually, I was moved out of the house. I moved out when I was 17 years old. I went to Job Corps in Excelsior Springs, Missouri. I dropped out of that, met a girl, dropped out of that, later on got married, and I didn't join the military until I was 23.
What were you doing for Job Corps?
I was actually studying to become a certified nursing assistant.
And what made you decide not to do that and go into the military instead?
As a kid, I always liked, I was into G.I. Joe, and back when I was growing up, it was the Cold War, and I had visions of fighting the communists, and well, when I was a kid, I automatically go, I'm going to go fight the Nazis, even though they've been long gone.
So when you joined the military, and there weren't any Nazis, did it measure up for you?
At first, it was, what the hell did I get myself into? Because I joined under the old slogan, be all you can be. You saw the great commercials where everybody was doing this, that, tanks were flying over hills and stuff, and then here I am, I'm mopping and buffing floors. I'm like going, wow, this is different.
How soon did they take you off mopping floors and give you something else to do?
Oh, actually, I did that pretty much up until my third duty station. It's always, you got to clean your barracks, you got to go clean the company, you got to go clean this, clean that. So it pretty much been ongoing until I made my E5.
Let's go back just a little bit. What was basic training like for you?
It was easy. I thought it was easy. I thought it was going to be a lot more screaming and yelling at you, you know, like you've seen in the movies and whatnot, but it really wasn't. I was actually disappointed.
Did they have the little cards at the time that you could ask for if you were under a lot of stress and then hand to your CO?
No.
Have they already stopped that program?
There were rumors that it was starting when I went through basic training. In fact, I went to Fort Jackson for basic, and once I got to my first unit, I get a lot of people who go, "Oh, did you get the stress cards?" I'm like going, No. Why would I need a stress card?
Yeah, I remember the stress cards very well. You said that you got married fairly young.
Yeah.
How did being in the military affect that marriage?
Actually, by the time I was joined the by the time I actually joined the military, I'd been separated from my spouse for 2 years.
Have you since remarried?
Yes.
Do you have children?
That one's a long story. I have 2 children by my first wife. They got adopted by my ex-in-laws. It was pretty much they ended up ambushing me, and I was still too young and stupid to realize what they did to me.
Have you had any contact with them at all over the years?
No.
And those are the only 2 children that you have?
Yes.
With your marriage now, how does your wife deal with the idea of you being deployed for a 3rd time?
We actually had a discussion about it a few weeks ago, and it was like, I told my wife, it's nothing against you, honey, I need to deploy again. And she turned and looked to me and said, it's nothing against you, honey, you need to deploy. And I'm like, that's what I just said. And it really has nothing to do with her and I arguing or fighting. It's just that the money is better when you're deployed.
When you're deployed, isn't it non-taxable income?
Yes.
That's what I thought. When you first joined, what unit were you with?
My first duty station,
Yes.
the Bravo Company 501st FSB.
Okay, and will you explain what FSB is?
It doesn't exist anymore. It used to stand for Forward Support Battalion.
And what did you do while you were with that battalion?
I'm trying to think, 2 years I ran a battery shop. What we did was we would take the big, heavy 12-volt batteries, we'd get them in dry, and then we would put the acid into them. So I did that for about 2 years. We were supposed to be a part-time battery shop, but my unit actually liked to keep us running full-time.
And what were those batteries for? What equipment?
Multitude of equipment, generators, Humvees, 5 tons, deuce and a halves, anything that the military needed a 12-volt battery for. We would, well, not the entire military, but a lot of the units in Germany.
And is Germany where you were stationed at the time?
Yes.
And how did you like living in a foreign country?
I thought it was great. That's why I joined the Army in the first place.
What did you like about Germany in particular?
The scenery, the one thing that I noticed when I was over there, they didn't really, how do you say it? Like we have here in the States, we have all the billboards and stuff along the sides of the roads everywhere you go. Over there, when you get out into the countryside, you don't see the man-made crap that we have.
Not a lot of visual noise.
Right.
Was there anything that you didn't like about living in Germany?
No, actually, everything was nice.
What was your social life like over there?
I went out a lot. I finally got my divorce when I was in Germany. After that, my social life picked up a lot.
Is it mostly dance clubs, theaters?
You know, my girlfriend at the time would take me into some of the clubs, but I don't dance, so she would get up and dance with her girlfriends and whatnot. I went into like the little bars, and I'd actually go see American movies on the economy.
Why on the economy?
The movie theater was better. They served, it was a novel idea to me. They served alcohol in the movie theaters there.
And could you smoke in those movie theaters?
No.
When you left the 501, what was your next assignment?
My next assignment was the 25th FSB Bravo Company again, and that was at Fort Lewis, Washington.
And did your MOS change?
Actually, my MOS never changed. They just, if they didn't have the equipment for me to work on, I would become whatever they needed me to become. Germany, I worked a little bit with generators. I worked in a battery shop. And when I went to Fort Lewis, I became, in essence, a generator mechanic because they really didn't have my equipment that I normally work on.
What kind of equipment did you normally work on?
I work on chemical equipment, actually light and heavy chemical equipment, M12s, which are heavy decon apparatuses.
Okay, and by decon you mean decontamination?
Yes.
In order to do that, did you have to train in the CS gas chamber?
Not in order to work on it, but we all go through the CS chambers.
And what was that like? How many people were in there with you?
No, they would actually run it depends. In basic training, they would fit a lot more of us in there. But once you get to your regular unit, they put like a squad in there, which is, they can go from 10 to 15 people inside the room.
And what did you have to do while you were in that chamber?
At first, well, actually it's been the same every time I went. They loved torturing us. You do some exercises, you rock your head back and forth, tilt it up and down to make sure you got a good seal on your pro mask. And then before you leave, you have to break the seal, and then they've actually had us reseal it. And when you do that, you automatically get CS gas in you, so you're coughing. But a lot of the times our guys love to tell us to pull your mask off, close your eyes and say your name, or else you're not getting out of the gas chamber.
And what is it like for you when you come back out into the fresh air?
It's pretty much, you got tears streaming out of your eyes, you got snot coming down your face, you're trying to gag and puke.
And how do you get rid of the CS gas that you've inhaled?
You just keep breathing. You got to breathe through it.
And do they offer you water or anything afterwards to
Usually,
rinse off?
yeah. We always have a portable water station set up.
I've heard that oftentimes they would have a unit historian there to take pictures at the time.
Yeah, pretty much. It's yeah. Every time I've been through, they've always had some goof off with a camera.
Did you take the advice and go the other direction, or did they catch you on film?
No, actually, they told me where to go, so I did that, and somebody would automatically stop you. They'd go chunk like this, and you're like, okay, I'm ready. They're like, don't rub your eyes, don't rub your eyes, it burns.
Have you ever seen any of those photographs?
Yes.
Did you burn them or hide them?
No, actually, I don't know where they are. I never got a hold of any of them, but they're probably still with the units.
Now you're an E5. What does it take to become a non-commissioned officer?
For me, I don't know what to tell you about the other soldiers, but for me, I didn't want to become an E5 too early. I've seen way too many people become an NCO way too early, and they don't have the experience that they should have.
It affects their leadership qualities?
If they don't have enough experience, in my opinion, it does.
receive these changes in rank as you move up the ladder? Are they given to you? Do you apply for them? Do you test for them?
Well, when you're E1 to E4, it's an automatic promotion system. When you make E4, then you start working to make your NCO, and it's actually based on a point system, and which has recently been through a change. But you have to go to a promotion board, and then they count your military schools that you've been to, civilian education, military education, your PT test and weapons qualification, and awards.
And what is your civilian education?
I have a little bit of college.
And your military education?
Military education is any type of schools that I've been to. I went to, it used to be known as a PLDC. They changed it over to WLC nowadays. That is the very primary school for leadership.
And what do you do with these schools for leadership?
Let's see, it's been a couple of years. When I went to WLC, it was pretty much, you learn how to research things, you learn how to listen to what your soldiers have to say, and above all, it's one of those things they keep telling you, you're not the soldier's friend, because when you're an E4, you're still buddy-buddy with these guys. Once you become an NCO, and especially when I did, you could be going into war, and then you have to lead these guys, and if they will not listen to you, when you lead them, say you go to Iraq, for instance, if I tell my guys, hey, we got to go do this, and they go, why? That can get them killed.
Is it the time delay that can get them killed?
Yes, it's usually that.
Do you enjoy being an NCO?
Yes, I do.
What do you like about it?
Just the fact that I can actually, I'm molding the soldiers. And I've been told this prior with my senior NCOs in my other units. They said, soak up all the knowledge you can get from me. I'm not going to be in the service much longer. And now my career is winding down itself, and I tell my soldiers, look, gain all the knowledge you can from me. I'm not going to be here forever. The Army's not going to stop because I get out. It's going to continue on, and it's going to be soldiers like you, and they're like, sometimes they're like, well, I'm getting out, and I was like, more power to you. It's not for everybody.
Who are you mentoring at the moment?
I have Specialist McAllister. He's a real good soldier, and actually I mentor everybody in my squad.
How many people are in your squad?
I have an actual small squad, 5 right now.
Is there anything that you think they're missing in particular? You seem very concerned, as if there's something they just don't quite understand yet.
Well, the one thing that you worry about when you're a leader is the fact that with me, there's only one other soldier in my group that has combat experience. And I just worry about these. They're pretty much kids, you know. The youngest one I have is 18, same age as my daughter is. And it seems to me like a lot of the times the soldiers' first question is, why? And they just need to learn that, hey, I'm going to tell you to do something. There's always a method to my madness, and that's what I've told them. At times they'll go, why? And then I just give them a stare, and then they go, okay, I messed up.
Let's talk about your first deployment That was Operation Iraqi Freedom?
Yes.
2006 was when you went?
Yes.
What did they tell you to expect before you got there?
They really, they really didn't tell us what to expect. It was, we did some training down at JRTC, which is down in Louisiana, and they pretty much had IEDs going off in villages down at the training area. So that's what prepped us to go to Iraq. Once we got on the plane and everything, we're going over there, that's when people were starting to say, hey, this is what you can start to expect and whatnot. So it was like one of those where, like, I'm like, okay.
And where was your field of operation when you were over there?
We were in the Victory Base Complex.
And where was that located?
They kept saying inside the green zone.
Okay. When you got off the plane, what was the weather like?
It was, you got off the plane and pretty much the air hits you, and you got to hit the air back because you actually, like, you step off the plane, you're like, ugh. You can't breathe for a little bit.
Was it dry or was it humid?
Yeah.
You said the air hit you.
Yeah, I think it was the combination of how hot it was. We got there in August, so you know that's always a fun month in any state. So we get there in August. We get to Kuwait, which is sometimes a little bit hotter than Iraq is. And it's just one of those things, unless you grew up in a climate of desert, you're not used to it.
What kind of housing did you have when you were over there?
We were in trailers.
Any air conditioning?
Yes.
Was there a mess hall for you there, or were you eating MREs?
No, by the time we got there in 06, 07, they already had multiple defects set up.
Multiple defects?
Dining facilities.
Thank
Yes.
you. I'm wondering how you were influenced, if you were, about the character of the enemy.
I don't know if I actually was. It's a lot of times people base their opinions on other people by what they see in the news and the media. But I kept trying to keep an open mind when I got over there. I wasn't one of the ones who went out and kicked down doors. The first time I was over there, I got set out on the, the first 3 months I was there, I was Tower Line NCO IC. I was in charge of 12 towers with 2 personnel each.
Are those communication towers?
No, for the defense of the FOB.
Thank you. That's forward operating base?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Did you have any interaction with the civilian population at all?
Just our interpreter when I was over on the entry control point, otherwise ECP.
Now, I know that during Vietnam, the soldiers had trouble distinguishing who was friend and who was foe.
Mm-hmm.
Because to them, everyone looked the same, and the culture was so different. Did you find yourself able to trust the interpreter?
As much as you can trust anybody that you don't know, would I have trusted him with my life? Maybe if we went out on missions together, But with him, being inside the walls with us at all times, unless we needed him to go just right down the lane, I don't know if I would trust him with my life, but the man seemed like a really good guy, so.
What did you learn when you were over there about yourself?
I've never thought about that. I found out I became more alive when I got deployed, especially from when I joined the Army. I was wanting to do what we ended up doing when we deployed to Iraq. And that was also the first time I'd ever been shot at or had mortars come in. And I actually handled it a lot better than some of my battle buddies who were, the nicest way to put it, they were Billy Badasses when they were in garrison, and then they weren't quite as Billy Badass when they started getting shot at or mortared at.
Did that affect their ability to function?
I think it did.
In what ways?
It was like they weren't quite as sure as themselves as they were before, because in the past, like in a garrison environment, they're used to being in control of everything, and then when you're deployed, you're only in control of certain elements. There's some things you can't control.
Did their response affect group cohesiveness, your ability to rely on them mentally?
For me, it didn't really affect me per se, because at the time he was in charge of the ECP, I was in charge of the tower line, and we pretty much never mingled. But after that happened and I saw what happened, I told him, I actually drug him to the side and I go, I don't know what the hell you think you're doing, but these guys are looking to you to tell them what to do, and then you go crying like a little kid when you get shot at. I go, you got shot at. Okay, are you still here? He's like, yeah. I go, there you go. When it's your time to go, it's your time to go.
Did he straighten up?
Yes, he did.
When he was having difficulty, what were the changes you saw, if any, in the soldiers that he was responsible for? You must have seen something that made you have that conversation.
I think it really pissed off the soldiers. And in a way, it's good to have pissed off soldiers, but you don't want pissed off soldiers at you. You want them pissed off at the enemy, not you. Yeah, did that come out right?
Yes.
Okay.
I understood that.
Okay.
When you first became a non-commissioned officer, did you feel prepared yourself to lead other soldiers? Did you have any hesitation, moments of uncertainty?
I think everybody does. You're never going to be 100% prepared. If you claim to be, then you're lying to yourself and you're lying to your soldiers.
Is it a fake it till you make it kind of situation at first?
It really depends on what leadership you have. As with me being an E5, I'm not the very bottom of the totem pole for the NCOs, but as long as you have a good senior leadership that will mentor you in the right way, You should come out to be a good NCO.
What do you consider the right way?
Well, the right way is you don't berate your soldiers. You don't constantly put them down. And throughout my career up until about 8 years ago, that's the type of NCO that I had. That's how they were brought up in the military. You know, you get yelled at if you do something good, you get yelled at if you do something bad. That's how I got brought up through the military. And then my last unit, I had two, they became E7s. When they came in, they were staff sergeants. They came in and both of them started to mentor me. And that was actually the first time I had really good mentorship as a non-commissioned officer.
So you've modeled yourself after these gentlemen
Yes.
rather than the others. What is the largest unit you've ever been responsible for?
Squad?
Squad?
That's easy enough. My last unit, I had 12 soldiers. Yeah, 12 soldiers at one time.
When you were overseas the first time, was it the 12 or was it a smaller squad?
Actually, the last time I was over, or the first time?
The first time.
The first time, I was actually detached from my company because we went over as a company. We didn't go over as a battalion. We were first maintenance company, so we got deployed before our battalion did. And then I was actually assigned soldiers from other squads from different platoons than my own to when I was out on the ECP and Tower Line NCO.
Did that present more challenges because you had soldiers from other squads?
Yeah, yes it does. It always does.
How did you deal with that?
I think I dealt with it the way any good NCO should. You just take it, and then you do the best that you can with the soldiers for the time that you have them.
Were they questioning your authority originally because they didn't know you?
No, not at that time. Pretty much when they all knew me because of my reputation, and then they trusted me because of that.
And how important is that trust?
It's a life or death situation. It's utmost importance because I told these guys, you guys may not have come over with me, but we're all together. And I said, I am sending you back home to your mother and father, your sister, your brother, your wife, your kids, whoever you have. You're going home in one piece.
Let's talk about your second deployment.
Yes.
Those things in mind. Being that you've done this once, did it make it easier in any way for you the second time you were deployed in 2009, having previous experience?
I think it did, yes.
And in what ways did it make it easier for you?
Well, I knew what to expect. The first time I went over, I had no clue. The second time I was training up brand new soldiers, never been deployed before. And I had actually one soldier who had deployed with me the previous time. I said, you need to pick this specialist's brain. Anytime you want to know something about Iraq, pick his brain, pick my brain. And the guys are like, oh no, we know all about it. I'm like, really? They go, yeah, we've seen it all on TV. I'm like going, that's not the same thing.
ever shot at?
No.
So they were able to bypass that experience.
Yes.
And everyone got home safely?
Yes.
Where were you the second time you went over in Iraq?
Almost the exact same place I was the first time. It was deja vu.
And were your duties different, your responsibilities?
Yes, actually. They were pretty much in 2009, 2010, it was a garrison-style environment, if you will, rather than go out there or even guard the post. The second time, I was in charge of all the 91 Charlies that we had, and those guys are the ones who fix the ACs, which if the vehicle's AC went down, it would not leave the fob.
So the second time you were always within what we used to call the wire?
Yes.
Did you have any interaction with the civilian population the second time?
Yes, I did.
And in what ways were you involved with them?
Everybody, I need to actually back up to the first time we had the civilians on post they would have little movie stands, or not stands because they actually had buildings, but they ran the movie places where you could go in and buy DVDs and whatnot. So I had the interaction with them when I went in and bought movies from them, and of course they were working at the DFAC too. And the second time it's pretty much the same thing, but I also got to excuse me. I also talked to this. I don't know what he was, but I was just told to work with him, and if he needed something, we could get it for him. I was like, okay. But I was working with him and his son quite often throughout 2009, 2010.
I read a report that was given to members of Congress and the committees for Congress by a international security advisor, and she said that in 2009, which is when the report was done, things were winding down in Iraq. Did you find that to be true?
With the missions, see, us as mechanics, and we're the support element, our mission doesn't really wind down as quick as, say, the infantry or the tankers or the other people who actually go out and get the other stuff done. We're the ones who are supporting them. So our mission actually, they say it's winding down. Overall it may be, but when you're support like we are, we actually we do the same mission.
Help me if you can. I'm not sure that Americans understand how important the support units are. Can you explain why your unit was important to the overall mission?
Well, as support, we work on a wide variety of things. Say you get, we have 88 mics who are truck drivers. They weren't necessarily with us, but they're part of the support staff. With 88 mics, we would actually take parts from one fob, get into a convoy, and go to another fob and drop the parts off, so then, I don't know, General Blasey Skip's vehicle can get repaired. It wasn't just generals, it's anybody who was in Iraq who had a vehicle. Support personnel like myself and my soldiers were actually instrumental, because you don't have AC and you're in a vehicle that's completely up-armored, that thing gets hot real fast. And you can't really roll down the window and get a good breeze going. So, and of course, you've got food services. No Army can travel on an empty stomach. That's how I look at it. Lawyers, sometimes I don't know why we bring them along, but we do. Generator mechanics, without those guys, obviously, you're not going to have the power to run everything. The generals can't have their coffee in the morning. You know, the Army'd shut down then.
So it runs from the mundane to supporting combat troops.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. If a young soldier was considering your MOS, what would you say to them?
Don't do it.
And why is that?
It is nearly impossible for me to make staff sergeant.
And how has that affected you not being able to make staff sergeant?
Honestly, it's kind of ticked me off. Because I've seen soldiers who have the same amount of time in the service that I do, they're sergeant first classes. And actually, a lot of the times I'm getting closer to the age of my first sergeants, which is kind of crazy.
Is this one of the reasons that you're considering retiring in the next 5 years?
That, and it'll be 20 years, and it's time for me to move on.
What do you want to do after your career has ended in the military?
I actually talked about this with my wife and told some of my soldiers. They kind of laughed. I want to become an elementary school teacher.
I think that's marvelous. Do you know where you want to live? Where in the country you'd like to be?
Where I'm at right now. I live about an hour away from Fort Leonard Wood.
And for those who aren't familiar with Fort Leonard Wood, where is that located? What state?
It's in Missouri.
Will you be able to use the GI Bill?
Yes.
Is there anything that I have not asked you, that we have not discussed, that you would like people to know about your life and military career?
Being in the military is definitely not for everybody, but for the people who are in now or who are thinking about joining, you'll never have an experience quite like being in the Army or in the military in general. Because I got to be not friends, but battle buddies with Air Force, Marines, and some Navy guys. And I mean, it's just one of those things where the population in general will never know the, well, I guess maybe frat brothers would, the brotherhood that you get, and especially if you come under fire, especially with the people you deploy with, you come under fire, you go in as, I'm not wanting to say individuals, but I don't know how to put it in words. It's just like, I think it's actually closer than family.
Is that because you do depend on each other so deeply? It's a live or die situation.
I think it is.
How would you like to be remembered?
Well, by my soldiers, I want them to fear me. That's That's the best way I can put it. To the people that I've known in the military in the past, they're always going to remember me as a crazy son of a person. I just want the people to remember me because I got their sons and daughters home twice in one piece. And it's true, the second time we were in Iraq, it was a cakewalk. But when you deploy multiple times with the same unit, it breeds complacency, and that can actually kill somebody. Because I could have a young soldier go with me, and then I forget to tell them about, don't pick that up, and they pick it up and they blow their hand off or something. And then the guilt will start. It would with me, because the fact if you deploy multiple times, I know the Army likes to throw that around. We're going to keep everybody together longer periods of time, deploy them more often. That's where I think they make a big mistake.
You were not subjected to the stop-loss program, is that correct?
No, I was not.
So you were able to avoid the situation we just discussed.
Yes.
Now the mission of the 193rd, which you're with now,
Yes, ma'am.
part of the first ID, the big red one,
Yes.
the mission just changed
Yes.
from home security and national disaster response?
Yes, it is. It was.
What did you do for Homeland Security and natural disaster relief? Were you ever called out?
I only got to the unit in June, and they told me what they were on a Sea Smurf mission, and I was like, what in the hell is that? And they're like, oh, we're on Homeland Defense. I'm like going, that's what the entire Army's on, but okay. They go, no, if there's a natural disaster and whatnot, or nuclear, chemical, biological, we'll be called up. I'm like going, okay. We never did get called up. Not from June until October when I was there.
And recently that mission has changed?
Yes.
What is the mission now? You just went through training?
Yes, we went to Fort Knox for a field training exercise. It pretty much gets us trained to fire our weapons. Went through 249 ranges, M16, Mark 19, and 50 cal. Usually we do that once a year, once every 6 months for weapons qualification. But right now they're stepping up to bring us back into the wartime training, if you will.
Combat readiness?
Yes.
When is the 193rd expected to deploy?
We do not have any orders. Nobody knows.
How do you feel about the possibility of deploying for a third time?
Well, if I deploy for a third time, which I actually volunteered to do, I'll be going to Afghanistan, which I haven't seen there, so I'm done with Iraq, thank goodness. But I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be a new challenge to my leadership.
And you said you're done with Iraq, thank goodness. Why?
2 times over there in the exact same place. I think maybe if I went to a different spot, then, well, no. I'm just done with Iraq. And when I first re-enlisted, I actually turned down Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And I did that because I have pasty white skin and light hair and eyebrows, and I burn easy. And I go, yeah, me and hot climate don't get along. And then flash forward to years later, I'm in Iraq.
I understand that if you're careless with your body and you get a severe sunburn, that they'll bring charges against you because you were officially government property. Is that correct?
I've heard rumors. How true that is, I could not tell you.
How did you fare in Iraq?
Actually, I got a little bit darker, but the first time I was over there it didn't really matter because I was wearing approximately 80 pounds of gear on me for 95% of the time I was there.
What was that like?
I went from being 230 pounds down to 187 pounds in about 2 months. It's a great weight loss program.
Is that about all you can say for it?
Yeah, when the first time we were over there, we didn't have the really cool vests that they have now. We had the old IBAs, which we had to have side plates on here, and then we had to have, they called them inner DAPs, outer DAPs. Don't ask me what DAP stands for. I have no idea. But then you look like, I'm sure you've seen the pictures, they look like RoboCop going like this, and I was like going, this is retarded, and they're like, oh, we need to put more armor on you guys because we have a spine right here, and I'm like going, we can't move in this stuff.
What were those plates made from?
The Kevlar.
Are you going to stay with the 193rd until you retire, do you think?
If I'm going by what they did with me, my last unit, which was kept me there for 6 years, I don't see why I wouldn't stay with the 193rd.
And you like being with the 193rd?
It's different.
How's it different?
Well, it's different from my last unit, which every unit you go to is different. This one is different than my last unit. In a lot of ways, it's better than my last unit.
In what ways is it better?
It's a new challenge for me. I'm not seeing, well, I can't even say that about my last unit because I saw a lot of people leave. It's still new to me, which is a good thing. When you get to a unit and you're there as long as I was at my last one, it's like a depression sets in on you because you see people come and go in a lot less time than what you've had when you were with them. And you're like going, what about me? It's time for me to leave. And the first time I actually tried to get out of there, my branch said, no, you're needed in that unit. And I'm like, no, I'm not. They can bring in another NCO to do my job.
What are your duties now with the 193rd?
Right now it's undergoing a big change because the company I'm with is becoming a detachment. We're losing a lot of soldiers. The main focus, though, for me will always to be, and I tell my soldiers this, I go, from my lowest ranking, which I have a PFC, it's not that low ranking, up to my specialist, I go, look, you're supposed to take my spot. You guys are supposed to learn what I know to take my spot, so then I can relax. And sometimes it works, and sometimes you get the soldiers who... Last week I actually had a soldier get mad and throw, not a real tantrum, but he just got mad because he said that I treated him like a private. So he took off his rank. And I said, you want to be, if you don't stop acting like this, you're acting like one, I will make you a private. And sometimes you just have to pretty much, you can't physically grab the soldiers, but you got to shock them into making them realize, hey, I know what you're doing. And I told these guys, no matter what y'all do, what your excuse is, trust me, I've been around the block a couple of times. I've heard the excuses. I've made the excuses, and it always happens the same way. You're going to lose.
On your way up to E5, were you ever busted down?
No.
Any of your buddies?
Yes.
Can you reveal what happened without saying any names?
Well, let's see. Are we counting the one that I busted down to private E1 in Iraq?
Sure.
This kid had horrible hygiene. I would actually go into his, we call them chews, the living areas, and he would actually have bottles full of urine, and that's a big-time no-go, especially when all you got to do is walk your little happy ass out, go down a couple of trailers, and use the latrine. And then once I got that straightened up with him, then he would stop eating, and he was on my tower line crew. So if I'm missing him because he goes to sick call because he's not eating, that breaks down, that pretty much leaves me underhanded.
Do you think he was looking for a Section 8, or what we used to call a Section 8? Or was he just not adapting well?
With him, he was, I'm actually surprised they kept him in the Army as long as they did. He was one of those guys who, he was argumentative. In fact, I actually had his old squad leader came up to me and goes, now you know what I go through. And I go, why didn't you get him out before now? Especially when his job is to protect these guys so then they can sleep at night, so then they can go kick down the doors. And they go, well, that's not my problem. A lot of times you're going to, it's not everybody who does it, but there are certain NCOs that will always push their problems off onto somebody else and say, it's not my problem, it's yours now.
That's not much difference from a business environment.
I don't know too much about that.
Before we go, what would you like the American public to know about how the military has been treated overall throughout our wars in Afghanistan and Iraq?
With the American people themselves have shown nothing but kindness and compassion to the military. That's what I've seen. The people they elect as their officials, on the other hand, is a totally different story. I do pay attention to politics. I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat. I vote for the person I think will do the best job. And what I thought was funnier than anything was 9/11 happened. Everybody, oh, we need to go do this. We need to go get these guys. And then we started the war in Iraq. They couldn't find weapons of mass destruction, which I have a theory on that one in itself. But Congress was like, Congress and the Senate were all unanimous saying, we're going to send our troops in. And then once they figured out it's going to take us a little while, Congress and the Senate both go, and it coincided with the fact they needed to get reelected. They're like, I never supported the Iraq war. I never did this. I never did that. And yet you can go back and watch the tape where they say, send them. And a lot of these guys don't have children they're sending into war. They're sending in I'm not going to say they're sending in the poor and middle class to fight for them, who usually is the 1% of the country. But then again, I've also noticed, except for the fact of World War, actually, up until Vietnam when they had the draft still in place, it was World War II, we had everybody go, it seems like. Korea, we had everybody go in. Vietnam is when they started sending in, you know, if you had enough money, you didn't have to go. And actually, I think that's the way it still is. Well, nowadays you don't even have to join if you have enough money.
Do you think it's possible to change that?
Only if we do something like a country like Korea does. Korea has mandatory service for males. 2 years, 18 to 20. They have to join the military service. Will that ever fly in our country? No, it won't. Because we're too stubborn and pig-headed. And in general, Americans don't like change like that. Just look at the health care.
I understand. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
No, not really.
Sergeant Maxey, on behalf of myself and my family and Ball State University, I'd like to thank you